Steffy Forrester stood behind the desk that had once belonged to her grandfather. She was stiff and her eyes were blazing with anger that she had tried and failed to hide. Hope Logan sat across from her, calm on the outside but preparing for the storm she knew was coming on the inside. There was a lot of family loyalty, betrayal, and legacy in the air between them, and both women knew that this talk was about more than just business. It was about who they were, their pride, and whose name really meant something in the fashion world they both loved. Steffy didn't waste any time. As she talked about her problems, her voice was sharp, clipped, and full of anger. Sales figures, confusion about brands, trust is gone for good. Steffy thought that hope for the future was a problem, and that it was based on favoritism and emotional manipulation rather than new ideas. She said that hope was hiding behind her last name, and that she thought she could get as many second chances as she wanted because she was a Logan. Hope listened, her jaw tightening as she felt the familiar pain of being judged not for her work but for her family. She quietly defended her line, reminding Steffy of its loyal customers, its moral mission, and the many employees who depended on it. But Steffy had already made up her mind. Hope felt like the ground had shifted beneath her feet when Steffy finally said the words. Cold, clear, and final. She lost her job. Starting right now. No time to get used to it. No giving in. Just a hard stop. The silence that followed was deafening, and the only sound was the faint hum of the city outside the window. Hope slowly got up, keeping her dignity even though she was going through a lot. She told Steffy that being a leader wasn't about being in charge. It was about having a vision. She then left the office, leaving Steffy alone with her victory, and the uneasy feeling that she might have just set off a bomb that she couldn't control. People at Forrester Creations talked a lot, and by the time Hope got to the parking lot, people were already talking about it. Some workers felt sorry for her, while others were scared because they knew that if Hope Logan could be cut so brutally, no one was safe. Hope sat in her car for a long time, gripping the steering wheel and fighting the tears that wouldn't stop. She wasn't just sad about losing her job. She was sad about losing the dream she had built. The hope that she could live in a world that always reminded her she didn't belong. Steffy, on the other hand, tried to convince herself that she had done the right thing. She met with Ridge and Eric and told them that her choice was necessary to protect the company's future. Ridge, as always, was torn and asked why it was happening now and why there was no discussion. Eric, always the peacemaker, said out loud that he was worried about how it would affect people's feelings. But Steffy stood her ground, saying that sometimes being a strong leader meant making choices that weren't popular. Even though she stood up for what she did, she had moments of doubt that she quickly pushed away because she didn't want to show weakness in a world that punished it. Katie Logan was in her office at Spencer Publications across town, reading the news on her tablet and getting angrier and angrier. She knew what this was really about. Strength. Take charge. Old grudges that look like business strategy. Katie had seen her sister fight hard to prove herself, only to have the same strict hierarchy get in her way over and over again. This time, Katie wasn't happy just giving her sympathy. She saw a chance. A chance to not only keep Hope safe, but also give her power. Katie called Hope right away. Hope's voice was strained and tired when she answered. Katie didn't waste time with empty words. She told Hope that she believed in her, that she knew her talent, and that Steffy's choice would not determine her future. Then she made an offer that made Hope stop in her tracks. Katie wanted Hope to lead a brand new fashion division under the Spencer name. This division would be in line with Hope's values, free of Forrester politics, and fully supported by Katie's resources. Hope was shocked. The thought seemed impossible. She had just lost everything, but now her sister was giving her a new beginning, something brave and risky that was all hers. Doubt started to creep in. Was she ready to give up the Forrester legacy? Could she live outside of the only fashion house she had ever worked at? Katie calmed her down by reminding her that they were born to change. The Logans didn't give up when doors closed. They made new ones. While Hope thought about the offer, Steffy heard that Katie was interested, which made her even angrier. This wasn't just Hope getting back on her feet. It was a fight. Steffy went after Katie, saying she was using the situation to hurt Forrester Creations. Katie shot back, not sorry, saying that none of this would be happening if Steffy hadn't pushed Hope out. The sisters-in-law fought, their argument a violent clash of ideas. Legacy versus evolution, control versus collaboration. Ridge was once again in the middle, torn between his loyalty to Steffy and his guilt over Hope. He told Steffy to think about it again, and warned her that pushing Hope into the arms of a competitor could have long-term effects. Steffy, on the other hand, would not give up. She thought this was war and she wouldn't back down. Hope finally agreed to Katie's offer, but she was scared. The news shook the fashion world to its core. There was a lot of talk in the news about betrayal, revenge, and the rise of a new power player. Hope stood next to Katie at the press conference, nervous but determined, and said that this wasn't about getting back at someone. It was about making something important. Something real. Something that showed who she really was. But behind closed doors, the emotional cost was very high. Hope felt guilty because she knew that her success could hurt people she still loved. Steffy, who was watching from a distance, hid her fear with confidence, but deep down she knew she had underestimated Hope's strength and Katie's strategic genius. As alliances changed and battle lines were drawn, one thing became very clear. Firing Hope didn't end the war. It had only changed it. The fight between Forrester and Logan was no longer just between them. It was professional, public, and permanent. And like in a soap opera, the effects were just starting to show. The news that Hope Logan was working with Spencer Publications didn't just spread through Los Angeles. It blew up. Within a few hours, fashion insiders, the media, and longtime friends of Forrester were all talking about what might happen. Some people thought it was Hope's chance to make up for her mistakes, while others called it a betrayal that was almost treasonous. But the reaction inside Forrester Creations was much more real. The mood changed from tense to openly hostile, and Steffi could feel it as soon as she stepped onto the design floor. People stopped talking. People looked at her. Steffi felt something dangerous for the first time since she took over. Doubt. She went back to her office and slammed the door shut behind her, her anger just below the surface. Steffi thought Hope would crawl away in defeat, but she didn't. She didn't just fade away into nothingness. Instead, she had teamed up with one of Forrester's strongest competitors, and even worse, she had done it with confidence. Steffi played the press footage back in her head. Hope standing next to Katie, her voice steady and her message clear. This wasn't desperation. This was a plan. Steffi hated that she didn't see it coming. Ridge tried to talk to his daughter again, but this time Steffi lost her cool. She told him that he always saw Hope through rose-colored glasses and never really stood by her when it mattered most. Old wounds came back, years of divided loyalties, half-hearted support, and emotional compromises that had made Steffi the tough leader she was now. Ridge, who was clearly shaken, realized too late that this was no longer just about business. It was about getting approval. And Steffi had to feel like she was chosen. Hope was starting to feel the weight of her choice across town. Hope was struggling with her conscience while Katie took care of the details like contracts, office space, and branding. She thought about the seamstresses she had worked with, the models who believed in her vision, and the history that was woven into every Forrester sketchbook. She knew it was ironic that the same company that had pushed her out had also made her who she was. And now she was ready to face it head-on. Katie, who was always practical, told her that growth often came from being uncomfortable. She told Hope to put all of her pain into the new line and turn her heartbreak into something that would change the world. And Hope did just that over time. She started drawing again, this time with designs that felt more free, bold, and free of the weight of legacy expectations. Fabrics that are good for the environment. Sizing for everyone. Messages that are based on empowerment instead of elitism. Hope felt creatively alive for the first time in a long time. But the piece didn't last long. Steffi moved on quickly and without saying sorry. She gave the go-ahead for an aggressive marketing campaign that was meant to hurt Hope's growing brand. At first, it was subtle with whispers about experience, credibility, and true fashion lineage. But it was clear that it was aimed at someone. It was clear what they meant. Hope was just an amateur playing dress-up, supported by Logan's money and feelings. Katie was furious when she heard about the campaign. She went right up to Steffi and told her she was turning a personal grudge into a smear campaign. Steffi didn't say no. She just smiled and told Katie that business was war. The collateral damage spread quickly. Brooke was torn between her daughter and the family she had worked so hard to be a part of. She begged Steffi to think about it again and calm down before things got out of hand. Steffi, who was cold but calm, reminded Brooke that no one could afford to be neutral in this fight. You were either loyal or you were useless. Meanwhile, the fashion world was eagerly waiting for Hope's first independent show to start. There was a lot of pressure. Critics were ready to call her a failure at the first mistake she made. Hope hardly slept because she kept having nightmares about empty runways and being humiliated in public. But every time she felt like doubt was going to take over, she remembered what Steffy had said. The end, the dismissal, and the idea that she would break. And that memory made her more determined. The night of the showcase came, and everyone was excited. There were a lot of big names in the industry there, and they were all very focused and had high hopes. Hope stood alone for a moment backstage, taking deep breaths to calm herself. It wasn't about Steffy. This wasn't about getting even. This was mostly about proving to herself that she belonged here. When the lights went down and the first model walked down the runway, things changed. The collection was real, emotional, and very human. Each piece told a story about loss, strength, and new beginnings. The crowd was standing by the last walk. The room was filled with applause that drowned out months of doubt and fear. Katie squeezed Hope's hand and tears filled her eyes. She was so proud of her. Steffi watched the footage by herself in different parts of the city. She told herself that the praise was too much. Something new. A response of sympathy. But deep down she knew it, that unmistakable twist in her stomach. Hope had not only lived, she had flown high. And for the first time, Steffi had to face a truth she had been avoiding for years. Firing Hope had not gotten rid of a threat. It had made one. As the war between the Logans and the Forresters got worse, alliances would break down, secrets would come out, and love would be put to the test in ways that no one could have predicted. In this world, winning always cost something, and the bill was about to come due. Hope Logan should have felt happy when she succeeded. But instead it felt heavy and almost scary. Every fashion blog and industry podcast was buzzing about her first collection, but with every compliment came a reminder that she had crossed a line that could never be erased. Hope didn't just start a new brand. She made herself a direct threat to Forrester Creations. That difference was important in Los Angeles, where fashion and family were always together. Steffi's answer at Forrester was quick and cold. There was no longer any hope that this fight would cool down over time. She called an emergency executive meeting, and her presence and tone were strong. She didn't see Hope's success as natural growth, but as manipulation. A story made up of Spencer money, Logan sentimentality, and media bias. It was clear what she wanted to do. Damage Hope's reputation before it became a permanent force. Steffi gave the go-ahead for a quiet internal investigation into Hope's new business behind closed doors. Vendors. People who make things. Sources of fabric. Anything that could be used to its full potential. Steffi wanted to remind Hope how hard it could be to play in the big leagues if she wanted to. For Steffi, this wasn't being mean, it was just survival. She was taught that the Forrester name had to be earned every day, defended fiercely, and never given up. Rich felt the change right away. His daughter was going to a place that even he had a hard time recognizing. He told her that obsession disguised as leadership had ruined better leaders than her. Steffi told him to go away, saying once more that he was putting the Logan's feelings ahead of the company's future. Their fight hurt a lot, bringing back wounds that had never fully healed. Ridge asked himself for the first time if Steffi's strength had turned into something dangerous. Hope, on the other hand, was under a different kind of pressure. The glow of success drew not only praise but also criticism. Investors wanted things to grow faster. Katie told them to be careful, but the excitement was too much to handle. Hope felt like she was being pulled in two different directions. Her desire to grow responsibly and the industry's desire to be the best. She was afraid that by proving she could compete with Forrester, she might lose the very things that made her who she was. When she got an anonymous tip that said one of her fabric suppliers was connected to unethical labor practices, her fears grew even stronger. People started to panic. Hope started an internal review right away, determined to keep things open at all costs. But the story got out before she could do anything. Headlines blew up overnight, making people question her ethical branding and bringing back old claims of hypocrisy. Hope knew right away where the leak had come from. Katie didn't hide anything when she talked to Steffi. Like generals on a battlefield, the two women stood facing each other, neither willing to back down. Katie said that Steffi was using lies to hurt her sister. Steffi didn't deny planning the exposure. She just denied its purpose. She said that the public had a right to know the truth, and that Hope's image was a carefully crafted lie. It was bitterly ironic that Steffy had become what she accused Hope of being. The fallout was terrible. Hope's investors got scared. Orders were put on hold. Workers were afraid of losing their jobs. Hope took responsibility in public by making a statement that acknowledged the concern and reaffirmed her commitment to ethical reform. In private, she was heartbroken, not just because of the attack, but also because she knew that Steffy would do anything to win. Brooke watched the war unfold with a growing sense of dread. She tried again to appeal to Steffy's humanity by reminding her of the many times Hope had been hurt in battles that Steffy had started. Steffy didn't say anything, and her face was hard to read. Steffy answered quietly but with finality when Brooke was done. "This will stop when Hope stops coming for what's mine." Brooke couldn't stop thinking about that. Hope hadn't come to Forrester Creations. She had been pushed, and now there was no way to go back. As the weeks went by, Steffy's side also started to show cracks. Board members were worried about her aggressive tactics. Eric wondered if the company was giving up its soul to gain control. People started to talk about problems with leadership. Steffy, always on guard, felt the change and it scared her. Power was slipping not because Hope was getting stronger, but because Steffy wouldn't give in. Then there was the twist that no one saw coming. A secret proposal came to light, an offer for a strategic partnership that could change everything. A third big name in fashion, eager to take advantage of the situation, showed interest in teaming up with Hope's brand. The move would put Hope above the competition. She would be untouchable. Katie thought it was great. Hope saw the risk. If they accepted the offer, they would have to go to war with Forrester Creations, which would change the fashion world they shared forever. Steffy's reaction to the proposal was very strong. It wasn't just a competition anymore. This was a threat to life itself. Steffy realized something that scared her to the core as she stood alone in her office, looking out at the city skyline. Hope's firing didn't fix a problem. It had made her biggest enemy. In fashion, just like in love, the person you helped make is the most dangerous enemy.